I mean, there's sports facilities in the schools. Those are all maintained by the schools. We don't have anything to do with that. But again, maybe this is more of a recreational question, and I think I've already addressed that as well, that there's, when we talked about the budget, what we could do. Our recreation department is, recreation in the city is pretty much run by volunteers, and I know there are some like pop-up concession areas and stands like over behind Eastlake Middle School. It's the service department. We'll maintain that if we have to, or it's the Board of Education's issue to maintain that. Yeah, I'm not really sure what people are referring, whoever asked this question, I'm not really sure what sports facility you are referring to. So maybe Kevin knows the answer. We'll see.
So fortunately, I do know. So currently we have our soccer fields at Woodland Park. We have our football field at Woodland Park, both a practice field and a game field, although they use the game field at North High School now, generously through North High School. We have our baseball league program behind Thomas Jefferson. That contains 6-7 baseball fields that in the first year of me being employed by the city of Eastlake in the recreation department, personally helped build. We last year put in a pickleball court, we have basketball courts, and we recently brought a cricket league to the city of Eastlake. So to say we have no sports fields, not sure where you've been living. And as far as maintenance, obviously the long-term plan is to reestablish the recreation department. In the meantime, we continue to work on them and keep up with them as best we can. We cut those fields. You know, I'm also going to stop and remember, because I always forget it and I feel bad about it. My daughter was a part of it. But we also have the gymnastics and basketball leagues that unfortunately have to find their own places that have to pay rent as a City of Eastlake league. And I think that is so wrong, and another reason we need to work towards establishing our recreation department. As of now, we use our service departments. We maintain the fields through the service department, which basically includes cutting the grass for them. But back in the day, we used to line their fields, we'd drag and broom their ball fields, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay, a little change of pace here. What changes do you anticipate due to the big, beautiful bill? For example, healthcare, school lunches, grants. And the second part of the question is, what plans might you have to circumvent the probable loss of funding, especially for those less fortunate in our community?
So this is interesting and more of a national question than a local question, but we are losing some local funding. I don't know if it's a direct result of this, but I know our local funding we are losing some of, but I believe that's through the state. And again, some of these programs that you're referring to with the schools, that's a school board issue. The lunches for the schools, that obviously is a school board issue. We do have handouts or food distributions at the senior center that takes place as far as what the city can do to prevent any of this. We just have to be diligent again with our finances, and we have to keep on top of it. We have to see what this looks like. As of now, we don't know what this looks like, but it is more of a national issue and a school issue than a city issue. But that doesn't mean we ignore it. We have to pay attention, and have to see where it falls and then determine what we need to do with our finances to adjust. Thank you.
Okay, well, the big beautiful bill certainly passed Congress and it's in effect. And it is going to affect healthcare costs, it's going to affect Medicaid costs, it's going to affect women's access to birth control. All those things are going to either disappear or increase in costs. They're anticipating right now that the healthcare expense is going to go up significantly. Your health insurance premium is going to go up significantly. The other thing that is going to play a significant impact in our long-term financial health are the tariffs. If there are tariffs and we're using different supplies and equipment, our supply costs go up, that's going to impact our budget as well. It's a very unstable time for as far as making any type of long-term investment, which is why when I talked about the extra funds from the stadium, I thought it'd be best just to invest those for a little bit so that we're not spending money that we may need in the future. But yeah, the big beautiful bill and the tariffs, there's a lot of financial uncertainty. I'm aware that interest rates have come down. I believe it was either an 1/8 or 1/4%. But again, that's not going to have a huge impact on our city as much as if the police cruiser goes up. The cost of cars goes up, the cost of gasoline goes up. All those things are going to affect our budget. All those things are going to affect our bottom line. So being responsible, fiscally responsible, making sure that everything that is purchased is reasonable and necessary, that there's purchase orders for things, that there's receipts for these items, and that the items that are purchased are accounted for, and that they remain in our city, and that we get to use them.
Okay, this is a two-part question. The first part says, when are they going to pave East 332nd Street off Lakeshore? And the second part is, what are Mr. Kaselnik's qualifications to be mayor? But I'm going to ask each of the candidates to give you, so we'll give them 3 minutes on this question. Okay?
Well, on the paving on East 332nd off Lakeshore, I understand from when I spoke with the finance director and the current service director that they have a list of streets that need to be paved, and I did not get a copy of that list, but I don't know if 332nd is on it, but if it is, it'll be on the list to go down. There is a road levy that we have. It's about $800,000 in our road levy right now, and what we typically do with that money is we try to find matching grants and funds and apply those monies where we get the maximum effect for those funds. So if we get a grant from a federal grant or a state grant, usually a state grant to repair, let's say, a section of Stevens Boulevard, and it's $1 million project and they're going to pay 80%, well, we're going to put up 20% of that. But if they're saying, well, we're only pay 20%, we're not going to have the 80% to put it up. So we always look for matching funds on our road improvement projects, and I'm not sure where 332nd falls in that. As far as my qualifications for mayor, as I said, I've been your city council representative for 8 years. I have an undergraduate degree in business management, and I have a Juris Doctorate degree from Cleveland Marshall College of Law. I've been running my business for 28 years quite successfully, and I love this city. I'm the hometown girl. I've been here my entire life. I know these streets like the back of my hand. I've probably skinned my knee on a couple of them. And my first jobs were, Brucey Ballpark and Jackson Park. So I know this town. I know this town, I know our history, and I care about our future, and I hope you'll give me an opportunity to prove that to you. Thank you.
Thank you again for the question. So Mr. Pledge is correct. There is a list, and that list is in need of updating. what happens is the city engineer and the service director and the mayor, we go around and we rate the streets by a number of criterias. So then you go to your budget and you see what you can afford in-house, and then you also obviously go after grant money, which I started to speak about before. The OPWC money is usually one that we use quite a bit, but it will follow the rankings of the roads. They're all rated, and you obviously start from the worst road to the least worst roads, and you get through your budget what you have to spend. And what you have to spend is what you have to spend unless you get a grant, which we will actively pursue, and we already actively pursue. So that's kind of the answer to that. So I don't have a degree, a BS degree or a bachelor's degree, but I do have a master's degree from the School of Hard Knocks. And I learned that right here in the city of Eastlake, working for you folks for the last 31 years. I have given my blood, my sweat, and my tears for this city, and I'll continue to do that when you elect me as your next mayor. I have worked side by side with six different mayors. I'm most proud of the work that we've done under Mayor Morley. We have accomplished many, many projects. I've obtained these grants. I've helped work on these grants. If anybody knows these roads, it's me. I've paved them for you, personally. The sewers, the infrastructure, the sports facilities that somebody else didn't know we had. There's nothing about this city that I don't know. And if there is, I'm open to listening to it from any resident or any employees or any directors. We will have the strongest directors possible. We'll have the strongest, best employees, which we already do. We just need more of them. But again, that takes financing and it takes time. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Before I ask the next question, thank you. Let me say I'm going to close questions at 7:30, so that gives us about 20 more minutes. At that time, the bar is open. You can mingle. I'm sure the candidates would be glad to stay, but we only have this room until 8 o'clock. So, next question. If we build more homes, then we need more jobs, and with more people and more jobs, won't inflation go up? If not, why not?
I'm not sure the correlation of if we need more homes and we need more people. That goes back to community development and having the businesses to sustain the people that we have. How will that cause inflation? I don't have an answer for that one, to be honest with you. That's all I got.
Building more homes doesn't cause inflation. That's the simple answer to that. Building more homes, what it does is it generates more property tax revenue for our city. And I know people get a little worked up about their property taxes and how much actually comes to the city. Of your property taxes that you pay, only about 10% actually comes to the city. And again, that doesn't affect inflation. When you build a house, you put people to work. That's always a good thing. There's more money. There's people, the workers going to the restaurants for lunch, or people coming in and staying in our hotels. Anytime there's any type of development, it's always going to be positive for the community, and it does not have any effect on inflation. Thank you.
These are two related questions, and I think it goes back to something that we didn't understand before. But the one question is, how will you ensure that youth sports leaders have the tools that they need to create safe, inclusive environment for players? And what steps will you take to ensure youth sports and their leaders are adequately funded to meet growing demand and to maintain the quality?
Well, this goes back to having a recreation department, and we've kind of already touched on that and the funds that might be available. As far as recreation facilities, when I think of a facility and infrastructure, I don't necessarily think of an open soccer field or a baseball field. I think of the Lost Nation Sports Center. And we don't have anything like that here in Eastlake. But again, as far as adequately funded, these are things that will take time. And again, I felt pretty good today about finding the grant, the fishing grant, which was just kind of crazy. But I'm sure there's other grants that we can use for recreation that will help offset the cost of that. And I think it mentioned something about safety, create safe, inclusive environments for players. I think that I was just at the North High football game last Friday. It was safe, it was inclusive, it was a healthy environment for everybody there, the marching band, the football players, everybody in attendance, everybody was having a great time. There were no incidences. There was a policeman there, there's an ambulance there, and just as a precautionary message to keep everybody, precautionary method to keep everybody safe. But I think we already do a lot, and I think we have a really safe community, and I think we have an excellent police and fire department, and they're going to continue to do your job, and they're going to continue to keep all of us safe. Thank you.
Well, I would have to agree that this goes back to the recreation department and the working towards reestablishment of the recreation department. What we can do to, although I do look at soccer fields and football fields and baseball fields as our facilities, they are our facilities. We have turned them over to volunteers to run. I don't think that's fair. I think we need to run them the way we did run them originally. But again, that's down the road. That's not something that's going to happen overnight, because it is going to take funding, and we do need to take responsibility for it. We do need to give our kids safe places to play, and there's leagues to have those places. I touched on the gymnastics league that has no home and has to pay for a building to rent. I touched on our basketball league that has to rent their own building because we don't have one. That's not fair to our children. And not only do we need to provide those for our children, but we do need to maintain them, and we do need to make sure that they're safe, and we do need to make sure that it's something that we take hold of and not put the onus on the volunteers and the coaches and the parents. They have enough on their plate that this is something that the city itself should be maintaining. Now, when I talk about recreation, I'm not only talking about the children, I'm also talking about the seniors. The senior center we moved, the third time we've moved it since I've worked there. We completely reconstructed the community center and turned it into the senior center. What's lacking there now is a room like this. They don't have a room for their lunches where we used to have Meals on Wheels in there, and we used to serve the lunches. We don't do that anymore because we don't have the room for it. That's something that we also need to look into. And again, this isn't tomorrow. This isn't next year. This is down the road, but it's something we need to plan on. And I think that falls under the onus of the city to offer our seniors more bus trips, more adventures, we did the pickleball court mostly for the seniors because that's something they wanted and that they enjoyed. And we may look into possibly some more pickleball courts if that takes off the way we anticipated it to. So those are my thoughts on the matter. Thank you again for your time.
There were two more questions I drew about youth sports, but I think we're going to move on to something different. But both candidates need to keep that in mind, whoever's elected. Can you explain the process the City of Eastlake follows when making a purchase? Specifically, is there ever a reason or scenario where a purchase as large as $26,000 would not require both a purchase order and a receipt? And since both of you have worked for the city in previous roles, have either of you not followed this process? If so, why should taxpayers trust you with their money?
Thank you. So yes, the procedure is anything over $25,000 has to go to the council, first of all. So if you're talking about a $26,000 purchase, no, that cannot go through without council's approval. So you will fill out a requisition form if we're talking about something less than $26,000. You'll fill out a requisition form, and I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to or if it's just anything in particular, but that purchase order will be signed, usually comes from the working foreman of the department. It'll be signed by the director, and it'll be sent over to the finance department, where they will look at it and determine whether or not they're going to approve it. That's the procedure, and that's how it works. And have you ever not followed that procedure? Absolutely not. You can't. It won't be approved. That's the way it works. That's all I got for you.
In my conversations with the finance director, there is a very specific process that you go through for any director to make any type of purchase in the city. And though it has to be the purchase, and again, the limit is $25,000, it has to be approved by City Council before the purchase is made, not after. You also have to have a receipt for that expense, and you have to account for the materials that were purchased. If you did not provide a receipt, or you did not account for those materials, as occurred in October of 2023 with the service department and the service director, what happens is City Council and the finance director has to reallocate $26,000 from one account to a different account, and they have to make sure that the vendor is paid. And then they have to go and they have to find the items that were purchased for $26,000, and hopefully they find them. If they don't find them, that brings someone's integrity into question about how they're going to run the city going forward. The process is you need an item, you fill out a purchase request, you get it approved through the finance director and City Council, and when City Council gives you the approval to spend those funds, you can then take those funds and you can work with the vendor to secure the materials. And then you have to show proof that you actually purchased those materials. So it is a process. It's a way to protect your tax dollars. And it's a way to make sure that there's accountability in the process. Thank you.
The next question is, how do you find grants and what kind of grants are available?
Okay, well, I kind of already talked about this, didn't I? So, grants.gov. I Googled grants today. Grants.gov came up. There's all kinds of grants for all different kinds of government uses, recreational uses, safety equipment uses, all kinds of things. And you just go through them and you look and see, which ones can we apply for? How can we do this? So, as I said, I talked earlier about the fishing grant. So there are all kinds of grants, and I'm going to go through them when I have your mayor, and I'm not a full-time attorney running my practice and running for mayor, and I have time to sit down and study all the grants. That's what I'm going to do, and that's how we're going to supplement our city and our finances that's what we do now. But we're just hopefully gonna get a little bit better at it. Thank you.
So I agree, there's many places to look for grants. There's many places we already do look for grants. This is something that we've been doing for years, and it's something we'll continue to do for years. Now, I'm curious about someone trying to call out my integrity, because that's how I took that from Mr. Pledge. If something was purchased, I believe I've been thinking about a mechanic in the chief mechanic in the mechanic department, and I believe she's talking about tires, which was done completely without my knowledge, but had to go through the finance department in order to get a purchase order. Now, if he did that on his own, that's something that I was unaware of, and that did not take place with my knowledge. Thank you.
Okay, this is going to be our last question. Again, there are many more questions in the box, and I apologize if we didn't get to yours, but we need to leave here at a decent hour. So, how do you plan to make streets safer in residential areas without access to sidewalks?
So how do you make streets safer? That would fall under obviously the police department. If there's an issue where we have some streets that are unsafe that need to be monitored more, all it takes is a simple phone call to the police department. I'm sure the police chief is more than willing to station a car there, or to put up the speed cameras or monitoring the speeds. There is a couple of areas that I can think of offhand that do have the possibility of sidewalk installation. Now, I'm not saying that 100% for every street where there's not sidewalks, but there are a couple that I'm aware of that are a possibility of having sidewalks put in. I know one of them that's been questioned a few times is at the end of 349th and East Lawn, and that's behind the school, the new school. And like I did in the past, I've actually talked to the school board, Steve Johnson, the guy in charge of the building and grounds there. And when we built our Little League facility at Thomas Jefferson, for the first 30 years or so, that went with a gravel parking lot that the teachers used and the sports league used. And last year of my employment before retiring, I got with Steve Johnson and said, hey, we'd like to pave this parking lot, and would you be willing to contribute and help us with that? We'll do the work. Steve Johnson's reply was, we'll pay for the asphalt. So we got that done, working hand in hand with the school board, and they paid for all the asphalt. We did the work. I could see on East Lawn behind the school, the elementary school, that may be another project, and I have actually given the thought, put the thought in his head about it already, that may be a place where we could do something very similar, where we do the work, they pay for the concrete, something to that effect. So, thank you for your time.
If I was the service director and $26,000 worth of tires showed up in the service department building, and I've been in that building, I would absolutely want to know where those tires came from, where they were going, and where the purchase order was. And the fact that he doesn't know that there was a $26,000 purchase is alarming, to say the least. The question is, how do you plan to make streets safe in residential areas without access to sidewalks? We can contact CEI, and at the request of you and your neighbors, they will install streetlights on your street. One of the other things we can do is we can put in slower speed signs, so slow children signs, if you will. We can also roll over the radar, the portable radar machine, to remind people to slow down, that they're in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. And one of the other things we can do is we can have more residents register their ring checks, their ring cameras. And that provides law enforcement with additional resources to make sure that our streets are safer. And I'm thinking about more talking just about sidewalks, but obviously, if there's a car that hits a pedestrian, a ring camera is certainly going to may play a pivotal role in resolving that issue. So those are all 4 things that we can do to make residential areas safer when they don't have sidewalks. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to call time, and I want to especially thank the 2 candidates for giving up their time tonight, for both being polite and on topic. I want to thank my timers. I really want to thank the facility for giving this free of charge for tonight. So please enjoy a beverage and safe travels home. I hope I'll see a lot of you on Thursday.